The Iranians are not going to give up. They certainly are not prepared to just accept an American strike and say that's it.
And right now, no one is backing down. The U.S. and Britain are again targeting militants backed by Iran, raising the temperature as other countries move to cool things down. Welcome to Your World Tonight on Saturday, February 3rd. I'm Stephanie Skandaris. Also on the program.
What I would say about this technology is it's absolutely groundbreaking.
The world's smallest camera enters a blood vessel in a brain and makes history. We'll explain the medical first from Canada and how it'll help treat people who have had strokes. And Toronto officially becomes the center of the universe. The hockey universe, that is. But the NHL All Star Game remains overshadowed by serious allegations against 5 players. And fans want answers. Russia says it wants to talk, and it's calling for a meeting of the UN Security Council to do so. It's in response to U.S. airstrikes against Iran-linked targets in Iraq and Syria. Russia, an ally of Iran, accuses the U.S. of inflaming conflict in the Middle East. And today, more U.S. strikes hitting targets in Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. While the White House was clear it does not want a wider conflict in the region, experts say U.S. actions are making the situation worse. Chris Reyes reports.
A region on edge over what's coming next. Friday's strikes on Syria and Iraq came with a warning from the U.S. government. More to come. The air assault targeted Iran-backed militias that the U.S. says were responsible for the drone attack that killed 3 U.S. soldiers in Jordan last week. U.S. officials say the strikes successfully hit operation centers and weapons storage sites used by Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps and its proxy forces. Fawaz Gergis is a professor of international relations at the London School of Economics and Political Science.
I think what President Biden has tried to do is to walk a fine line between retaliation on the one hand and avoiding escalation. I expect more escalation in the next few days and few weeks.
From Syria and Iraq, strong condemnation. Officials from both countries blame the U.S. for inflaming tensions in the region. Iraqi officials say 16 people were killed, including civilians. Warnings of escalating tensions in the Middle East have been ringing louder and louder since the October 7th attacks by Hamas on Israel. Since then, the U.S. has been fighting against different Iran-backed groups in the region, including Houthi rebels in Yemen who have been attacking ships in the Red Sea. Today, another wave of assaults. The U.S. and Britain hit at least 30 Houthi targets in Yemen. Malcolm Davis is an analyst with the Australian Strategic Policy Institute.
The Iranians are not going to give up. They don't want war necessarily, but they certainly are not prepared to just accept an American strike and say that's it, our efforts are over.
Foreign Minister Melanie Joly says Canada is concerned about the rising temperature in the region, making it all the more important to address the situation between Israel and Hamas.
First and foremost, we need to get to a hostage deal. Hostages need to get back and be released, and we need to make sure that Hamas lay down its arms.
Gergis adds, until the fighting in Gaza ends, the whole region is vulnerable.
If you ask me, what is the most important decision that could basically end this vicious cycle of escalation? I would say a permanent ceasefire in Gaza.
And with no guarantees of that, an already tense region waits on anybody's next move. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
In Belfast, Northern Ireland's government is back to work 2 years to the day after it collapsed. One of its first acts was naming Michelle O'Neill as First Minister.
I confirm that I am willing to take up the office of First Minister.
O'Neill represents Sinn Féin, the nationalist party with historical ties to the Irish Republican Army. Her appointment is a first for Northern Ireland, where unionists, who are largely Protestant and loyal to the UK, have held the greater share of power. O'Neill made no mention of Irish unification today, vowing to be a First Minister for all.
As an Irish Republican, I pledge cooperation and genuine honest effort with all those colleagues of a unionist tradition who cherish the Union. This is an assembly for all, Catholic, Protestant and dissenter.
Northern Ireland has been without a functioning government since February 2022. That's when the Democratic Unionist Party started a boycott over post-Brexit trade rules. The DUP ended its boycott earlier this week. Well, the NHL All Star Weekend is all about showcasing the best of the best in hockey. The NHL's biggest stars took center stage in Toronto this afternoon for the All Star Game. But this year, the spotlight was not entirely on the ice. Philip Lishanok reports.
Outside a sold-out Scotiabank Arena in downtown Toronto, hockey fans, the ones lucky enough to have a ticket, line up to see NHL superstars play a round-robin tournament. Sophie Lavasseur came from Pembroke, Ontario.
It's a pretty cool experience to just see all the top players in the league in one spot.
This is the first time Toronto has hosted the All-Star Game in 24 years, and it's taking place just days before 5 professional players, 4 from the NHL, make their first appearance in court a few hours' drive away in London, Ontario. The 5 were members of Canada's 2018 World Junior team who are facing sexual assault charges in connection to events that happened before they were drafted by league teams. All the players maintain their innocence and say they plan to plead not guilty. Lavasseur says as a fan, it has cast a shadow on the festivities.
I think it's a little disappointing just for Hockey Canada itself, but we'll see in the next few weeks what happens.
League President Gary Bettman addressed the controversy head-on in a lengthy press conference on the eve of the big game.
This is not typical of NHL players. These players weren't NHL players in the league playing games at the time this alleged incident took place.
But Bettman says it's incumbent on organizations at every level of the sport to work to change the culture.
This is not representative, these allegations, of what takes place in our game, and we're committed to setting the right example and cooperating with hockey organizations at all levels, particularly the youth level, to make sure the message in terms of what is appropriate conduct is delivered. We want people to know that our game is inclusive, welcoming, and safe.
Hockey is a major thing in Canada, and this was happening with Hockey Canada, so someone's got to speak up.
Hockey fan Amanda Delis Alice says while she's here to celebrate the sport this weekend, she says fans shouldn't pretend everything is fine.
None of the teams have really spoke about it, but it was a little obvious. You do the math, you knew who was on the 2018 team. We shouldn't avoid talking about it.
As for the league, Bettman says the players allegedly involved are all on leave from their NHL teams. And he says the league has completed its own year-long external investigation into the incident, but the NHL has not released the results. Philip Lishanok, CBC News, Toronto.
Environment Canada has issued snowfall warnings for central and eastern Nova Scotia, including Cape Breton. Up to 80 centimetres of snow is expected to accumulate in some areas. The city of Halifax suspended public transit services today, advising people to avoid unnecessary travel due to poor driving conditions. The snow is expected to last through the weekend and into Monday. Meanwhile, parts of southern Alberta could see at least 40 centimetres of snow tonight. Snow in that region is expected to go into Sunday morning. Well, it was an industrial accident, a human tragedy felt round the world. When Rana Plaza collapsed in Bangladesh in 2013, more than 1,100 people were killed, many making clothes for Canadians. International clothing brands, including Canadian labels, promised to improve wages and working conditions for the people who make their clothes. So, did that happen? The CBC program Fifth Estate was in Bangladesh in the aftermath of the tragedy, and co-host Mark Kelly went back again 10 years later to see if promises made were promises kept.
This is the sound of the workers who make your clothes in Bangladesh, taking to the streets in the capital Dhaka this fall in a fight to increase the minimum wage. The government agreed. Workers now make about $150 a month. But that's still well below what's considered a living wage in Bangladesh. There's some 4 million garment workers in Bangladesh. They're a pillar of the economy. But in the face of staggering inflation, how do they make ends meet, making clothes for international brands we know and wear? This is the Savar district, home to some 400 garment factories. The neighborhood, a symphony of motorcycle engines, trucks, wild chickens, and crying babies. This is where we found Lazina Akhtar. She makes pants for Loblaw-owned Joe Fresh.
A lot of women working in the garment factories were once housewives, and right now they're being empowered. Also, women were once treated as if they were useless in society, but right now they're contributing to the economy.
The 24-year-old lives in a compound with thousands of other garment factory workers. Housed in squat concrete buildings, Lazina shares a 10-foot by 10-foot room with another worker. They sleep on the floor. No mattress, no closets, no kitchen.
How much are you paid to make pants for Joe Fresh?
We get a very small salary, around 100 to 120 Canadian dollars a month. I don't know how much the owner gets, but we get very little.
She works 11 hours a day, 6 days a week. A 2021 report for the Canadian Steelworkers Humanity Fund reveals workers earn between $73 and $100 a month, making clothes for 5 iconic Canadian brands, including Joe Fresh.
Our biggest finding was that workers working for Canadian brands are no better off than workers working for other brands.
Sushmita Preeta is a journalist who did the research for the report.
Maybe it's time for Canada to actually stand up and say, you know, we are the ones who will be fighting for a living wage for workers across supply chains. So I think it's important for consumers to know the real price of the products that they're buying.
In the dusty landscape of Savar, one building in particular stands tall. It's the new steel and glass headquarters of the BGMEA, which represents the garment factory owners. This is where I met the group's president, Farooq Hassan. He claims that conditions for workers like Lazina Akhtar are getting better.
And I believe that what you have seen, you will not see in future, because we are trying to make their salary, higher salary.
But you've been in business for years. This isn't like you just started this business. You have been in business for years.
Yes, we should pay them so that they can perform, they can be happy with their wages, so that they can work happily, because happy workers is a good workers.
But this is not the sound of happy workers. In fact, at least 4 garment workers were killed during clashes last fall with police as they demanded a wage increase.
The concern we've also heard is that if workers are protesting, factory owners call the police, and the police come out and they beat up the protesters.
Normally, it is not happening here. I can assure you.
Do you think it is safe in this current environment for workers to protest if they are angry?
Yeah, it is safe.
We learned in the weeks after this interview, as many as 4,000 workers were fired for protesting, according to the labor rights group, the Clean Clothes Campaign. Columnist Sushmita Preeta says factory owners, some who are prominent politicians in Bangladesh, are crushing the workers' rights to fight for a better deal.
That should not be the case. The law enforcement should be there to protect the people of Bangladesh, not the factory owners of Bangladesh.
Farooq Hassan says don't blame that on factory owners. He says it's now up to international brands to pay more for clothes made in Bangladesh.
They are not doing a fair pricing or ethical sourcing.
Why not?
Because they believe that they can get more cheaper prices from Bangladesh, and that's why they always try to squeeze the prices on the head.
When asked about that, Joe Fresh said it's proud of its efforts in Bangladesh and pointed out the minimum wage has gone up over the last 10 years. For Lazina Akhtar, who works 6 days a week making pants for Joe Fresh, that wage increase won't be enough for her to afford the basic necessities.
Please look at Bangladesh's situation. If they buy products with a few more dollars, it's going to help the company, the owner, and thousands of workers like me.
But Lazina has a dream. On her 1 day off a week, she's taking a textile engineering degree at a local university. She wants to be a leader in the country's garment industry, fighting for a better deal for the people who make our clothes. Mark Kelly, CBC News, Dhaka, Bangladesh.
And you can watch The Fifth Estate's Made in Bangladesh 10 years later on CBC Gem, or you can stream it on YouTube. Doctors in Gaza are being forced to choose between life and limb. According to UNICEF, more than 1,000 Palestinian children have lost one or both of their legs between last October and November alone. Many amputations are performed without anesthesia or painkillers. As Caroline Bargout reports, doctors say with adequate resources, many surgeries could be avoided.
Sitting on the side of the road in Rafah, juice boxes in front of him, 12-year-old Mustafa Shehta is trying to sell anything to help his family.
Before the war, I used to go out for walks, but now I can't go out. I can't walk much because of my leg.
When the war started, Mustafa was living in northern Gaza. He was visiting his uncle when the building was bombed. His uncle was killed. Mustafa was pulled from the rubble.
I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't breathe.
Mustafa's leg was amputated below the knee. He was sent to Egypt for treatment, but is now back in southern Gaza, living with his sister, her kids, and her husband. He's desperate to go back to his parents, who are stuck in the north.
Before the war, I used to play with my friends. Now, no one looks at me. I want someone to come and take me out of here.
With Gaza's healthcare system crumbling, there are no official figures of how many Palestinians have had limbs removed. UNICEF estimates by the end of November, at least 1,000 children lost a leg.
And I had many patients, most of them children. Even I had babies.
Dr. Aldo Rodriguez says amputation cases in Gaza are now common. A general surgeon from Mexico, he's worked in several war zones with Doctors Without Borders. But he says Gaza is different.
I have never seen so many babies, victim of trauma with war wounds. Some babies even without parents, without the family, they were alone.
Where it's still a case of absolute misery.
If hospitals had more medicine, staff, or resources, Sean Casey says doctors could avoid some amputations.
The doctors and nurses are forced to provide the life-saving initial care, and in some cases that means sacrificing a limb.
Casey is an emergency medical coordinator with the World Health Organization. He recently visited several hospitals in Gaza, including Al-Shifa in the north.
It's hard to go into a hospital and see children on the floor bleeding and no health workers to care for them. To hear doctors crying out for a chest tube that isn't there, saying I could save this person, but I don't have the supplies that I need.
Those supplies include desperately needed medicine. Some doctors have been forced to perform amputations without anesthesia, while others have no pain meds to give patients for recovery.
The degree of pain unmanaged post-operatively would be absolutely unimaginable.
Canadian orthopedic surgeon Dr. Deirdre Noonan has worked with amputees in Gaza. She says a child will need more surgeries as they grow, physical and emotional therapy, and prosthetics every few years. But even before the war, Noonan says there was a long wait for artificial limbs because of Israel's blockade on Gaza.
It's not only surgery, it's not only a prosthesis, it's not only medical care, it's the whole 360-degree picture that would need to be in place.
I just want that when I grow up, I can walk like the other kids.
Mustafa hopes he can get a prosthetic leg soon so that he can once again run around like other kids. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Winnipeg.
For the first time ever, a camera has gone inside the blood vessel of a person's brain to diagnose what was causing their multiple strokes and have them treated in under an hour. The procedure was done at the Ottawa Hospital last fall using the world's smallest camera that was developed in southern Ontario. Kate Bickert reports from Kitchener.
What I would say about this technology is it's absolutely groundbreaking.
Dr. Dar Dolat Shahi is a neurologist at the Ottawa Hospital. Last year, he was treating a patient who had suffered multiple strokes, but even after testing with CT scans and MRIs, it was unclear why the strokes kept happening.
We had an uncertainty, and there was no current technology available to solve this uncertainty. But I was aware of this technology that was being developed in Waterloo.
The technology was a tiny camera just slightly thicker than a strand of hair that can give doctors a real-time, full-color view inside the blood vessels of the brain. His colleague, Dr. Robert Fahed, is an interventional neuroradiologist at the Ottawa Hospital. Using the camera, approved for one-time use by Health Canada for this procedure, he was able to diagnose and treat the patient in under an hour.
As soon as we used the camera and we went into that vessel,
Everybody in the room immediately saw what it was and determined what the lesion was. We were able to determine that the patient needed a stent. The stent was deployed, the camera was able to visualize all of this, and the patient hasn't had a stroke since then.
The camera was developed by Vena Medical in Kitchener, Ontario, a company started by two University of Waterloo engineering graduates, Michael Phillips and Philip Cooper, who, between them, are related to 7 physicians. Phillips says they knew the professional challenges their family members faced in treating strokes.
Seeing the before and after, knowing that their life is going to be different after this kind of procedure, it's really, really rewarding.
The technology is being applauded by the Heart and Stroke Foundation, saying in a statement it looks forward to seeing continued results of this emerging technology. Dr. Daulat Shahi says after a breakthrough like this, the question becomes, how else can this camera be used? Because the camera can go places in the body no other camera has been able to go before.
And right now we're in the brain, but this will no doubt be going into other parts of the body for all the other specialties as well.
Phillips says he's excited about developing the camera further and what it could mean for stroke treatment in Canada and beyond.
As an engineer, I want to treat as many patients as possible. And if I can design a device that's going to impact thousands, hundreds of thousands, eventually millions of patients worldwide, that's really our goal.
The company's goal now is to get regulatory clearance, not just from Health Canada, but also abroad, with the hopes that the world's smallest camera could be used in brains worldwide. Kate Bickert, CBC News, Kitchener, Ontario.
A rare and little-known medical disorder is now being shown on the big screen in a new Canadian film. It's about a 16-year-old girl who learns she has a condition affecting her reproductive system and has to work through what that means for her physically and mentally. For the filmmaker, it's a deeply personal story. Magda Gebre-Selassie has more.
I was calling it my emotional horror story.
Canadian writer and director Molly McGlynn decided to shed light on the syndrome that changed her life.
It affected my sense of self in terms of how I viewed myself as a woman, what having sex like for the first time would be.
Labeled a traumedy by its director, the film Fitting In centers around a 16-year-old shocking discovery about her body.
Lindy appears to have MRKH syndrome.
What is that? Mayer Rokitansky-Kuster-Hauser syndrome affects the female reproductive system. Lindy learns she was born without a uterus, a cervix, and much of a vaginal canal.
I'm pissed and sad I can't have a kid.
There are uncomfortable interactions with doctors and painful vaginal dilation treatment scenes. The characters' feelings of shame and confusion and eventual acceptance come through. This doctor has seen the wave of emotions that come in real life too.
Often at the beginning they're just quite shocked.
Dr. Alia Shashadina Parhar is a pediatric and adolescent gynecologist at BC Children's Hospital.
The condition occurs in about 1 in 4,500 to 1 in 5,000 patients who are assigned female at birth.
She says most patients will still have functioning ovaries, and that egg retrieval to assist with having biological children in the future is possible. Uterus transplants may be an option too. Even with all this, MRKH still remains a medical mystery for many people.
I was not familiar with this until Molly shared her story with us.
Maddie Ziegler plays the character of Lindy.
I think so many others will see themselves in this film, which is really cool.
That's what happened to Ashley Clark.
And it transported me back to 16-year-old me.
The founder of MRKH Canada first saw the film at the Toronto International Film Festival. Then she attended last weekend's premiere. And while it took an emotional toll, she says,
it was also just really, really cool to see that and to see yourself in a character on a big screen really representing something that isn't really shared to the public very often.
She and others are hopeful that MRKH syndrome is now out of the shadows and in the spotlight to stay. Magda Gebre-Selassie, CBC News, Toronto.
You are listening to Your World Tonight from CBC News. I'm Stephanie Skenderis. You can hear Your World Tonight and other CBC radio programs wherever you are on your favorite podcast app. As we told you earlier, this weekend the NHL is holding its All Star Weekend at Scotiabank Arena, which means Toronto is playing host to the best of the best in professional hockey. This next story, isn't about them. It's about another group of hockey players about 130 kilometers away and also about to be celebrated. Their skills may be so-so. Their determination is unmatched. Freelance reporter Denis Grignon brings us their story.
You're getting me a little emotional here. They're very brave. She's
standing near the boards of the local rink in Omini, Ontario. Pete Monroe gets choked up watching a few dozen men and women in full hockey gear skate around pylons, many slowly, unsteadily, precariously.
It's a really intimidating sport to take up as a grown-up.
4 years ago, Monroe launched Beer League Hockey Practice, a hockey school geared not to kids or seasoned rec league players, but to people who, like him, came to the game later in life and who want formal instruction where they won't be judged or mocked for their hockey prowess or lack thereof.
So you can hear the stick taps happening right now. That's one of the rules. Anytime somebody falls, it's to be celebrated. If you fall, it means you're trying, and that's the name of the game, right?
Students are here because, like Monroe, they want to be less bad at Canada's national game. Many are motivated by parenthood.
My son's in love with hockey, and we've done a few mums versus kids games, and I want to be able to get out and not fall on my butt.
Yelling in the stands at my kids to skate harder, yet I don't do it myself, so it's kind of like the pot calling the kettle black, so I figured I better do something.
It's not just parents of young children here, though, and not all of them are new to the sport either.
Play a fair bit of pickup hockey, but there's no instruction. Your teammates are polite, don't tell you what to do or how to do it, and you don't.
Jack Kyle is one of the more experienced students.
The other thing is, at my age, and I'm over 70, I don't have a lot of years left, and the young people have got more physical skills, and so I have to be smarter about my game if I'm going to stay at it.
Despite the easygoing, inclusive approach, students say they are getting an education, but so too are the coaches. Shelby Monroe played NCAA high-level university hockey in the U.S. She's now one of the many instructors at this adult beginner hockey school that she started with her new-to-hockey husband, Pete.
I think the world of people who start this later in life, because I don't know what that's like. These people are encouraging me to start something new. I'm like, I've never done piano. I want to play piano. For someone to come out and really just do something new like this is amazing. Like, it's been inspiring to me for sure.
Denis Grignon for CBC News, Omini, Ontario.
It seems hockey's not just inspiring would-be players to get on the ice. This week, it has also encouraged world-famous performers to get back on the stage. Justin Bieber, one of the All Star Game's 4 celebrity captains, had a surprise performance at a private party in Toronto, his first since canceling his 2022 tour because of temporary facial paralysis. On the set list, some real throwbacks like Baby, and newer hits like Ghost, which had fans singing along and posting online. Today, it was another celebrity captain's turn. 20-year-old Canadian star Tate McRae performed during the final game. Including this song, her #1 hit, Greedy, which is definitely not a dig at the players, though they were competing for $1 million prize. Here's some more of Tate McRae and Greedy on Your World Tonight on this Saturday, February 3rd. I'm Stephanie Skandaris. Talk to you tomorrow. So sure of yourself.